All right, couple of episodes coming up this week and next week where we're going to take a dive into not necessarily God's design for marriage specifically, but God's design for what it means to be a husband and God's design for what it means to be a wife. I'm going to take some time this week and talk a bit about what it looks like to be a godly husband, and Andrea will take her turn next week to take a look at what it means to be a godly wife. So, hard to have a godly marriage if you don't understand God's design for both pieces of the marriage. And that is what we're going to start digging into this morning.
Great. Let's get into that.
Before we jump into today's show, I wanted to ask you to check out our website, brand new website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. That's marriagebydesignpodcast.com. All of our episodes are available there on that website. Love to have you pop over there, follow us there, and check it out.
If you have a topic that you're wanting more information on or you have questions about, you can search on our website by topic, which is a really great feature.
That's right. And more than anything, guys, please share this with someone that would find it meaningful for them. Without any more delay, let's get to the show. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock, and you've joined us for the Marriage by Design podcast, a time where we get to talk to you about God's design for marriage, what the Bible has to say about that, and how we live that out practically.
All right. So today, diving into what it looks like to be a godly husband. This took me I don't even know how many years longer than it ought to have to begin to figure this out. And this is a massive topic, right? I mean, there are literally books and books and books and books written on the role of a husband in marriage. And so I'm trying to, as I've thought through this, prayed through this, studied God's word on God's design for marriage, I believe when you study that, you begin to understand God's design for the husband. And then as you incorporate into that the Old Testament stories that we see that revolve around marriage, as well as what Paul and Peter have to say about marriage in the New Testament, it becomes clear to us that the Holy Spirit is intending to give us revelation about what it looks like to be a godly husband. It's not just a matter of being a good guy. It's not a matter of being a quote-unquote provider. It's not a matter of being a sperm donor so that you can have kids. It's not a matter of any of those specific things. Being a godly husband, like so many things in the Christian walk, is not about what you do. It's about who you shape your character to be. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the roles of godly husbands today, the way I want to talk about it, I want to look at three categories. And I believe there are three categories that define all of what it means to be a godly husband. One, a godly husband is a servant. Two, a godly husband is a pursuer. And three, a godly husband is the rock of the family. Those three things, I believe, define what it means to be a godly husband. And any of these other things that you would read a book about, hear a podcast about, that your pastor might raise about things that godly husbands do, fall into one of those three categories. So that's where I want to dive into today. Anything you want to add on the front end? Andrea has never been a husband, godly or otherwise. So she's here a bit for moral support, as well as to add in just her own, from a wife's perspective, why each of these three things matter. So my hope is that as I go through, like, hey, generally, what does this look like? Practically, what does this look like for each of those three? Then I want to kick it over to her and let her know, like, hey, why do these matter to
women,
you and other women that you've had a chance to talk to? So
Good.
Anything on the front end that you would say about
it.
husbandry? I think that's taking care of animals.
Yeah, that husbandry is not what you are doing, babe. But
okay, well, I have 6 animals in the house, so disagree.
Or not anymore, at least.
All right. Here's what we're going to start with. If you want to be a godly husband, if you want to have a marriage that aligns with God's design for marriage. You are, first and foremost, more than anything else, a servant. I want to say that again. You are, more than anything else, a slave. Because in the New Testament, where it talks about servanthood, oftentimes that word servant is doulos. It's the word that means not just servant like house servant, but literal slave. So when we see, like, for example, in the book of James, when James says the brother and bondservant to Christ, that word bondservant also might be translated in your Bible servant, also might be translated in your Bible slave to Christ. When Christ came down to earth in the Gospels, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. When we read the story of Christ's life and ministry here on earth was defined by one thing. He gave himself away all the time. He was always serving. He was always teaching. He was always training his disciples. He was always choosing to get away to spend time with God the Father. He was choosing to lay down his life for those around him. And you might ask, like, well, great. Like, yeah, I've read the Gospels, but what actually does that have to do with me as a husband? I'm glad you asked. In Ephesians 5, verses 22 through 33, Paul gives us the key to God's design for marriage. And here's what he says about husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Jesus Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having washed her by the washing of the water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish.
There's another verse I'm thinking of that, of course, I can't remember where it is or the exact words, but that Jesus did not look for equality with God as a thing to be
grasped, but rather put on the form of a man, even becoming lowly as a slave.
It says something about did not consider equality with God a thing to be attained, but yeah, rather being a slave. Something about even unto death on a cross. Gosh, yep. I wish I had looked that up beforehand. It just popped into my head. Anyway, yeah, he was a servant even into death. Did you find it?
Yep, Philippians 2. What it says is, have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus. This is verse 5 through 8. Who, even though he was in the form of God, meaning he was the same as God, he did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, that's that same word doulos, by taking the form of a slave, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross.
Right. So he even had the right to be, better than, to be equal with the Lord, but he chose to be a servant, even so much as to die for those he was serving.
Right. And this definitely plays into marriage. And I'm giving a trigger warning to our handful of woke listeners that like to check in on this podcast and tell me about what an idiot I am. This is directly related to marriage, because you can say all you want about equality, and I do believe that men and women are equal in worth before the Lord. We're not created equally. Like, the bottom line is, if I wanted to steamroll Andrea emotionally, and at times I do, and it's a sin when I do, but if I wanted to, I could roll right over her. Same thing physically. Her and I are made differently physically. Like, if I wanted to do that, I could. If you don't think Jesus Christ could have come down here on earth and laid waste to all the human beings here on earth, you're kidding yourself about who Jesus Christ was when he was here on earth. Yet
but that doesn't mean it was God's design.
Not to do that. Yep. He chose to sacrifice himself for a group of people that he in a lot of ways was superior to in forms of just raw power, he chose to die on behalf of those people. This is the question I give to guys all the time. Because men struggle oftentimes with one of two things: apathy, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, and being domineering. And oftentimes what I find is men equate domineering with being a rock, which is the last thing we're going to talk about. Those are not the same.
Yeah.
You will not hear me say today that being a godly husband involves, and I'm not going to say anything about leadership. Like, I'm not going to say, like, you know, being a godly husband means you run the finances. Being a godly husband means you run the family. Being a godly husband means you set all these expectations for your wife. I'm not going to say any of those things because I don't believe that that is what it means to be a godly husband. What it means to be a godly husband is that you are willing to die on behalf of your wife. And I don't mean die death. Like, I know tons of guys that say, like, man, if somebody broke into our home, I would absolutely take a bullet for my wife and my kids. And I believe them. I just don't believe that that matters. Like, that's not what it means to be a servant. What it means to be a servant is, will you die in the little things every day? Will you give yourself up on behalf of your wife to serve her in ways that are meaningful to her? Are you choosing to get the kids ready for bed? Are you choosing to give them a bath? Are you choosing to clean up the kitchen? Are you choosing to sit down with her and watch a show even though you've got work to do because you know it means a lot to her? Like, are you willing to lay yourself down on behalf of your wife? Tons of guys are, as long as it's convenient for them. That's not what it means to be a servant leader in your home. That's not what it means to be a servant to your wife. And so I'm so passionate about this because so many guys struggle to, like, man, practically I don't know how to love my wife because I try to do these things and it just doesn't seem to matter to her. Well, have you ever just sat down with her and said, hey, what can I do to serve you this week? Have you really sat down with her and tried to figure out, man, what makes her tick? What is it that I could do that, man, would really just make her know I got her back? That's what it means to be a servant leader. So first thing that a godly husband does, they serve. They sacrifice on behalf of their wife. The second thing, and I put it second, although you could easily put this first, a godly husband pursues his wife. So, number one, a godly husband is a servant, and number two, a godly husband is a pursuer. So, what do I mean when I say a godly husband is a pursuer? It's fascinating to me when God created the institution of marriage, which he did way back in Genesis 2. This pursuer piece is actually the only hint we get about what marriage was meant to be. It's in Genesis 2:24. Eve had just been created, and God put Adam and Eve together in the union of marriage. And then in verse 24, he says, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. The only thing God tells us about marriage in the beginning is that a man will leave his family and pursue his wife. I think another way to look at that is a man will leave his comfort zone. He will leave the thing he knows, the thing he's used to, the thing that makes him comfortable, and he will pursue his wife into the things that make her comfortable. Her family, her lifestyle, like he will pursue her where she's at. That's the job of a godly husband, is to be a pursuer. It's why I warn my oldest, because he's the one entering dating age, and Andrea and I talk about with younger couples all the time, on the male side, you better know what your wife's into. Mm-hmm. What's her life situation? What's her relationship with her dad? What's her relationship with her family? What's going on in her life? Because the job of a godly man is to pursue her into that. Does she struggle with alcohol abuse? Does her family struggle with alcohol abuse? Guess where that guy is likely to be down the road?
Yeah.
Struggling in alcohol abuse. Because he's pursued his wife rightfully,
Struggling.
but into a wrongful situation.
Yeah, struggling in that, not himself necessarily, but...
Right, but the role of the man is to be a pursuer. And we should do an episode on this, the difference between being a pursuer and being a fixer. Because I think a lot of guys confuse the two and they end up in a bad marriage situation because they wanted to be a fixer, not a pursuer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a trick we can get played in. But today we're talking about being a pursuer. Here's another way I want to put this from a New Testament verse in case you think like, oh man, come on, that's from like way back in the Old Testament. You're right. In 1 Peter 3, Peter is talking to husbands and wives. And here's what he says to husbands in 1 Peter 3, verse 7. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. We read that, I think, a lot of times as godly men, and we're like, yes, live with my wife in an understanding way. And then we spend a ton of our time annoyed, complaining, getting bitter because we don't understand our wives. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay saying right now, you're probably never going to understand your wife. Notice that verse doesn't say, likewise, husbands, understand your wives. Because I think Peter was going, that ain't gonna happen.
Oh, come on.
It's not. I mean, anyone. I mean, really, if we're being honest, I would imagine it's the same for women to men. Like, there are, I think, a lot of ways where I start to understand you, and then you change because your life changes, your circumstances change, you get into something, your kids get older,
But I would say, yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be things that you don't understand about me, I guess. But
totally,
I think in a lot of ways, because you are a pursuer, I think at least in some ways, you actually know me better than I know myself, or you're attuned to things that about me that I'm not as attuned to, or oblivious to, or blinded by, have blind spots to, or whatever. But there have been times where I've been shocked about how well you read me or how well you know me, and I didn't even know that myself.
Man, I appreciate that. Although I would say the times when I've said that, in those situations where maybe I've said something and you've come back and been like, man, that was so insightful that you said that. I was discovering that at the same time I was saying it, right? Like it's not that I have you figured out, but I will say I have embraced the reality that I will never just click into knowing Andrea. So I have tried to train myself. I have tried to train myself in, okay, but then how do I live in a way where I'm pursuing understanding of her? Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of practical ways you can do this, but I think it's critical. Like men, we have to be leaders in open communication. Let's start there. Like you want to attempt to live in an understanding way. Be the one that says, "Hey, let's sit down." And you may have a wife that loves to talk, right? So then, but I can tell you, because we have a lot of friends who have wives that way. If you're not a pursuer of embracing that, like, hey, let's just come talk to me, they're going to start to realize that annoys you, and they're going to stop wanting to open up to you.
Yeah, and a way to pursue your wife in an understanding way may be that you talk to her too, that you want to you're pursuing conversation with her, but you're also conversating with her. So many, the typical marriage is the wife is the talker and the husband is the quiet one. And so if that's your situation, it may be that you're, yes, pursuing your wife to just sit. You're not doing anything. You're just sitting and hearing deep levels of communication from her.
Yep.
But also you're willing to be open up and be known to.
Right.
And that may be pursuing your wife.
That's the servant part.
Being known to.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And you may alternatively have a wife, like somebody I know, who is a talker, but is not going to just open up. Or very rarely is going to do that. And so for that person, who might be me, what we have learned over time is my pursuer of her might be more longer term, right? Like, hey, in a couple of days,
long game.
in a couple of days, on this day, today's Monday, on Wednesday, let's sit down in the evening. I don't want anything clouding up the schedule that night. I want to sit down and I want to talk about where you're at with homeschooling, where you're at with your mothering journey, where we're at in our marriage. Because if we finish up dinner and we've cleaned up and I go, Andrea, tell me about where you're at as a mom.
I'm not always ready to be there.
Well, yeah, just because she's just like, it takes you a while to like, okay, I need to think about that.
Yeah. So women, I know we're mostly talking to men, but for women, be somebody who is easy to pursue. And a lot of time, I'm not going to say a lot of times. There are times where women can act like your pursuit of me is annoying, or I'm not interested in you, or, whatever that is. Don't be that way. If he's taking the effort to pursue you, or I didn't like what we did. He's pursuing me, whatever. He did this date. And I have a bad attitude about it because I didn't like that date. He's pursuing you. Yeah. Pretend like you did, or figure out how to have fun on that date. Or there's several things that we've done that I think are no fun. But I'm with the person who loves me and is trying to pursue me and wants to spend time with me. That alone is fun. So,
and part of being a pursuer too is, in your example, saying, "Hey, was that fun for you?"
Sure, of course. And if it's not, that's okay, because it doesn't always have to be fun for both of us.
Right, but we should be able to talk about it too.
Yeah.
Like we should be able to say that.
So be somebody who's easy to pursue.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Maybe not at the drop of a hat, but you're willing to open up in communication and in all deep and shallow communication. You're willing to go out with them. You're willing to spend time with them. You're willing to, be pursued. So be somebody that's easy to pursue.
Yeah, that's great.
I was listening to I listened to a lot of this psychologist online that says he's a Christian, but he doesn't give biblical advice. And I listened to him because I'm interested in kind of what he says, that's okay. I'm interested in what kind of the worldly advice is on some of these things and what people are struggling in marriage and all that kind of thing. And he was saying that some years ago he realized, oh my gosh, I haven't been pursuing my wife. I don't really know my wife. And so he told his wife he really wants to, pursue her and get to know her again. And he said, will you please put together for me like I don't remember what he called it, like a syllabus. I think that's what he said, a syllabus of who you are. And I really want that. And then weeks and weeks went by and he didn't. And she was like, sure, I can do that. Weeks and weeks went by and he didn't get it. And he approached her again and was like, I really wanted that. I really want you to do that. And she was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot. And yes, I'll do that. And I was so sad to hear that. I was glad that he was like, I want to know you. But I'm like, dude, you got it all wrong. What she would prefer is that you take the time to pursue who she is and get to know her your darn self. Because now you're asking her to put the work into you knowing her. And while that sounds great on the surface, I guess, like you had hopes of, you have this desire to know her on a deeper level, you're wanting her to do the work and hand it to you.
Right.
That should not be the case. You should realize I have not put in the work to pursue my wife and know my wife. So now I need to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to start from ground zero. I can't expect her to just lay it out for me and, oh, now I know you. And
Right.
you've got to do the work. And I was really annoyed by that suggestion.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You're going to have to start from a ground zero or somewhere around there and put in the effort. And your wife wants you to put in that effort and not for her to have to hand it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's right. That's right. Okay. So number 1, godly husband is a servant. Number 2, godly husband is a pursuer. And number 3, a godly husband is the rock. And I struggled with the language here because I do not intend this to mean like I sit and I say something and my wife nods her head and she does it and I say something and my kids run off and do it. Like I think there are a lot of guys that they hear something like rock and they think rough like a rock. And that's not what I intended to mean. I almost actually said the role of a husband is to be a pillow. But then I didn't like the idea of like, a wet noodle either. So
rock
I went with
more
rock,
like
but
steady.
Right. That's exactly
Standing
that was
firm.
what I was just about to say. That's exactly what I mean. And not just steady or standing firm, but also a firm place for your wife to support your wife and your kids. But today we're talking about in the context of marriage. If you have not been living under a rock for your entire life, you know men and women are very different. Created differently physically, created differently intellectually, created differently emotionally. And I think one of the real services that we can provide as godly husbands to our wives is to help their emotional EKG come in for a soft landing sometimes. Because if you know what an EKG is, it's that little thing that can get connected to a patient in a hospital to monitor their heart. And it does the like blip, bloop, 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 bloop. And of course, if you die, it goes beep, right? Because there's no more heartbeat. So emotionally, oftentimes our wives are much more up and down and 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 up and down. High peaks, low valleys. Things can happen that stress them. And I'm including stress and anxiety in this emotional EKG factor that can cause spikes and dips in that emotional EKG. Men oftentimes, because of the way the Lord created us, are more resistant to that. Now, we can train that out of ourselves, and sadly, I fear, in the modern age, a lot of men are doing this. We're training ourselves to be anxious about a lot of things that we have no business being anxious about, and so we are actually training ourselves to be less steady in our emotions, and that needs to stop. But the godly position is that we are not completely steady because that would be perfect faith, and I pray that for everybody, but that we're able to help manage the emotional tone and temperature of our home by being steady. And that means we are the ones keeping track of where the Lord has brought us and reminding us of those things. When we see in the Old Testament Abraham building an altar, Isaac building an altar, David building altars, Joshua building altars, that was a way by which they served as the rock in their family and amongst their people. Because the purpose of those altars were, hey, when things get crazy, look at this altar and remember God is with us. Hey, when our finances in our home are getting crazy, when our kids are acting the fool, when maybe we're not communicating as well as we would like to, somebody needs to be the one to stop the snowball from snowballing emotionally and go, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We're raising our kids the best we can. Remember, they're a blessing from the Lord. we're stewarding our finances as best we can, or maybe we're not. Maybe you need to be the one to say, hey, look we've not done a good job here. And so this craziness we're experiencing right now is because I've not done a good job as the servant leader to look at our finances and go, hey, we as a family, we need to cut back because I don't want it to get crazy. Right? But you're owning it as the husband and helping to lower the temperature in your home. I put this one as third, even though I think it's really important because I think this is a really difficult one. The other two have to be right first. Because in order to be the rock in your home, you have to have moral authority in your wife's life.
Trust. Yep.
And if you haven't been a servant and you haven't been a pursuer, you probably don't. And so if you're in a bad way and you're listening to this, I put this one last because my main encouragement to you is, man, do those in that order. Like with servant and pursuer being 1A and 1B. Because in order for you to serve your wife, you might be in a position where you're like, man, I don't feel like I know what to do to serve her. Then be a pursuer. Like pursue that. What can I do to serve you? What kind of things what can I do around here that make your life easier? How can I make your work life easier? What can I do to help you raise our children? Like be a pursuer. And the feedback that you get while pursuing will help you know how to serve. And then lean into that. Because nobody likes a pursuer that's not a servant. That's unkind. Right. And servants that aren't pursuers tend to just be running around doing stuff that doesn't matter to anyone. I mean, I could bring Andrea flowers home every night. And at the end of the day, all she would do is be super annoyed with me. Because flowers don't matter to Andrea. That's not how she wants to be served.
Except if I'm getting no flowers ever, then they matter.
Reminds me to put something on my reminder list.
Just kidding.
No, yeah, but no, you got to know your spouse. And there was a long time in my life where I did things like that. Not flowers, but I would get you little gifts and things like that. And you'd go, oh, thanks. And I'd be annoyed because you're supposed to be like, oh, this is so sweet. And then God bless me by giving me a daughter that I can do that to.
Too.
All right, but one that loves that.
Yes.
Part specifically. So you can't be a servant and not be a pursuer. You can't be a pursuer and not be a servant. And after you get the two of those things right, then you have now created a situation as a godly man where you can set the emotional direction and temperature of your home.
Yeah, one way, so being the rock for your home doesn't mean that you're always getting it right or anything like that. Right. But one thing that I think really exemplifies that rock is I'm not like super emotional. I'm not crazy, but some
I didn't give any looks.
But sometimes I can get emotionally wrapped up in something that's stressing me out. And so I'm talking to Nathan about it and pouring my heart out about it, and my struggles with it or whatever. And he doesn't get on the emotional crazy train with me. He listens to me, and he usually I don't like right at that moment for him to provide advice. But, he's listening to me and kind of sympathizing with me and trying to hear what I'm saying. But he's not letting the crazy train leave the station for me. And he's not getting on that train with me and blowing that out of proportion even more than maybe I already have.
Right.
And even if I haven't blown it out, even if I'm just processing through something, he's the rock that's like, okay, we're going to bring this back. And what are we going to do about this? Yep. And maybe it's, reminding me like we've been here before and we've settled from that or whatever it is. He's not driving the train right alongside me.
Yeah, this reminds me something to put in the back of your mind if you're a guy listening to this. If your wife does this, like allows like the crazy like emotions of something, no, it's not always crazy. Like the raw emotions is the right way I should say that to start coming out to you. Yeah, it's not always
crazy.
That should be an encouragement to you that she sees you as a servant and a pursuer. because that's a vulnerable thing. And she's recognizing that, hey, I believe that my husband wants to know this.
Yep.
If she follows that up by saying, what do you think about that? Mm-hmm. Or am I crazy? Or, some question like that. If she just tells you the story and that's the end of it, that's your invitation to say nothing. Like smile, nod, hug, cry, be there for her. Do not give your opinion. If she then asks you your opinion on that, that is the indication to you that she also is inviting you to be the rock.
Yeah.
If you choose that.
Because there are times where I can be emotional about something and I know I'm emotional about this and I'm just pouring it out to somebody, right? Like I just need to be mad about it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I need Nathan to hear it. I want Nathan to hear it or whatever. I don't want advice about it. I certainly don't want to feel like he knows better than I do about this.
Right.
I just want to say something about it and knowing that I'll handle it. I just need to get it off my chest or I'm in process or, whatever. So yes, thankfully we've come to a better place where we understand that flow better.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great place to be if your wife is unloading on you. Yeah. Because she trusts you and she trusts that you can hear her without hopefully, sometimes there might be a seeking to get on that train with me and fan the flames of it. Don't do it though, because women need that rock to be like, all right, I'm listening.
Yeah, and this is not...
I'm just listening.
This is not maybe difficult when it's about her boss, but what about if it's about your mom? Mm-hmm. Like, it can be difficult. You can be tempted to want to jump in. Don't do it. Because being the rock in the family, I believe, and I've always believed, that that's what a girl wants. She wants a husband who will be the rock in the home. But this is the hardest position to achieve as a godly husband, and it's the easiest one to give up. Mm. And I believe it can, there can be ebbs and flows, even in our home, of times when Andrea looks at me kind of with that sort of authority and times when she doesn't. And I try really hard to preserve that, even though I didn't always. But being the rock in the home is sort of the almost the reward you get for getting the servanthood and the pursuer part right. And it should be the goal of every godly husband, in my opinion. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to us. marriagebydesign@gmail.com. We love to hear from the Marriage by Design community, so feel free to reach out if you have questions. Otherwise, thank you so much again for joining us. Hope you have a super blessed week. We look forward to meeting with you all again next Monday right back here on the Marriage by Design podcast. Until then, remember, God is for your marriage.
Thanks so much for listening. We just wanted to say, if you have a comment, a question, something that you're struggling with or need prayer, please reach out to us. You can get a hold of us by emailing marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can comment on any of our social media and we will get back to you. But if you have something private, feel free to email us. We're happy to personally respond to you.
That's right. And we do respond to every comment that we receive, either through our website, through YouTube, through our social medias, which leads me to feel free to pop over to our website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. You can leave comments on any of our videos through that site. We would love to be able to connect with you, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you just need prayer, you need someone to hear what you're going through, we're here for the Marriage by Design community, so feel free to reach out anytime. Until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.